Hi, I'm Sara.
And I'm Rena, and welcome to
Biopic, a podcast story. This is a podcast where we dissect the good, bad, ugly, and absurd of this specific genre of motion picture, the biopic. If you want to learn more about us, our scoring system, and how we choose movies, please check out our special introductory episode titled Introduction, Who Are We and What Are We Doing?
Sara. What movie are we doing this week?
This week, in honor of the 2026 Winter Olympics, we will be talking about I, Tonya. And before we get started, we do have an exciting announcement. Biopic, a podcast story, is speaking at Intelligent Speech Online. This year's theme is Companions and Rivals, and we will be talking about Truman Capote's friendships and doppelgangers in Capote and Infamous, the two Truman Capote writes in Cold Blood movies that came out within a year of each other in 2005 and 2006. Intelligent Speech is a veritable three-ring circus of content composed of 4 virtual rooms running simultaneous 40-minute sessions. These sessions include esteemed keynotes, fascinating and thoughtful creator presentations, or lively roundtable discussions followed by a Q&A with the audience. These Q&As, together with space and time for separate chats, create a unique experience in which members of the community can engage directly with the creators they follow. This online conference is taking place on February 28, 2026, and your ticket not only includes live attendance, but also access to recordings of all of the sessions after the event to watch at your leisure. And tickets are available now at intelligentspeechonline.com.
Enter Biopic at the checkout for 10% off. And if you ask nicely, I might tell you the story during the Q&A about the time that I met and chatted up Harper Lee in the emergency room line at New York Presbyterian.
Excellent story. But yes, do come and join us there. It's a wonderful way to celebrate Rena's birthday with her. And Rena, can you give us the trigger warning?
Trigger warning. I, Tonya, contains depictions of and/or references to child abuse, alcoholism, sexual abuse, law enforcement, domestic abuse, humiliation, 1990s-era casual misogyny, blue nail polish, classism, poverty, figure skating, the dawn of the 24-hour news cycle, the decline of the American working class, crime, incompetent criminals, the Winter Olympics, fur coats, involuntary urination, broken families, divorce, curling irons, cigarette smoking, trailers, the poverty line, the Pacific Northwest, cheekbones, lying, liars, self-delusion, firearms, betrayal, Dove bars, sewing machines, corporate endorsement deals, and some super nitty-gritty esoterics in the history of figure skating.
This episode has it all. Rena, can you give us the spoiler warning?
Spoiler warning. We are going to spoil everything, including possibly the major plot points in works of narrative art having nothing to do with this particular movie. Consider yourself warned.
Excellent. So just some of the sources used in this episode include...
Well, we lived through it. This happened when we were in middle school. I think I must have watched at least 30 to 50 hours worth of coverage purely about Tonya and Nancy. But before that, I loved watching figure skating as a child, so I was well aware of both of them, and I watched the documentary Sharp Edges, directed by Sandra Lucknow, a documentary on Tonya Harding that was made when she was just 15. 160-degree portrait of of her as a young skater, and a wonderful piece of long-form journalism that ran in the New York Times in 2018 called Tonya Harding Would Like Her Apology Now by Taffy Brodesser-Ackner, and an article from Vulture called A Fact-Checked Guide to I, Tonya, and some books that I skimmed bits of at the library that I will try to get into the show notes. Also, leading up to this, I watched many, many videos online of old figure skating competitions, some of which I recalled from childhood and adolescence, and I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole about the compulsory figures, a little talked about but quite significant element of competitive skating back in the day that affected every skater of this era and that we never talk about now for reasons I'll get into. And like I said, I loved watching figure skating as a kid. The only times that I cared about sports at all were during the Olympics and when figure skating was on TV, and the only sports I really cared about were figure skating and gymnastics. It was the only time that the girls were more important than the boys.
I would also just like to add too, there's a really great documentary that I watched called The Price of Gold. It's a 30 for 30. Rena, can you tell us a little bit about Tonya Harding?
Sure can, Sarah. Tonya Harding was born on November 12th, 1970, and she's still alive. She should be best remembered as the first American woman to land a triple axel jump in competition, which is a jump that has 3.5 turns in the air, and she was a prodigious talent. Like, when you look at videos of her jumps, she could get so much air into them. She could just get so high off the rink. And you'll see other skaters who medaled higher than her who don't get that level of height. She has several gold, silver, and bronze medals from national and world level championships. She was U.S. champion at least once. One of those is not her title anymore. Her competitive skating career was roughly between 1985 and 1994. Her mother was on her fourth marriage when they had her. She grew up in a Portland that is not the Portland of Portlandia. That the hipsterification of the Pacific Northwest had not really hit Portland. And it was a hardscrabble childhood. Her parents divorced when she was quite young. There's levels of abuse that happened to her. But more importantly, Tonya Harding was gifted with the level of raw talent that comes along a few times, barely, tops, within a generation. And I think it's a loss to the world and to figure skating and to sports that the vicious combo of bad choices and unlucky circumstances kneecapped her from fully appreciating what she could do and what she could be, and it was our loss too. We can tell that by just how early she got good, from her accomplishments in 91 and 92, despite a lack of establishment support and a lifestyle not conducive to athletic achievement. And also from how much she's documented still being able to do as a skater, despite decades of smoking and long breaks from a strict training regimen. Taffy Brodesser-Akner recorded in 2018 that Harding, at the age of 47, was still landing double axels, which is crazy. And checking in now, she still lands double jumps with ease. And she's 56 now or so? And also in terms of how early she got good, one of the things that there was an interview again with Taffy Brodesser-Akner where she remarked that Tonya Harding was winning skating competitions at an age when most people aren't that great at walking. And she was lucky that Diane Rawlinson did so much for her and took her on. But on the other hand, neither of the two coaches that she worked with, when you see people talking about Olympic skaters, you see the names of the same coaches turning up again and again. The coaches that worked with her, Dodie Teachman did work with Ashley Wagner, who went to the Olympics, but neither of them ever took anyone all the way before or after her. So it was also like who she could get to work with her and make the concessions, given that she grew up blue collar. She's dealing with poverty line issues throughout the film. There's that one point where Diane says she looks like she chops wood in the morning, and her mother goes, "She does chop wood." So And here I'm going to talk about something that they don't go into in the movie, but that affected figure skaters for decades. I'm going to talk about the compulsory figures because I think this was yet another thing that affected her monetarily that the film doesn't talk about. So what does figure skating mean, Sarah, at its root? Where does the name come from that we use?
Just kind of doping it out here in a series of guesses. I'm guessing that it has something to do with the shape of what they're making on the ice.
Yes, Sarah, you're right. So the original, our term that we use in English for figure skating is for the figures they make on the ice. Because originally it was about before jumps and spins become the whole sport. It was about the figures you traced on the ice. So what the compulsory figures were, they were a whole portion of figure skating competition that consisted of the skater would trace a predetermined shape or pattern on the ice on one skate, and then they would have to retrace it with the other skate on one foot both times, and they would be judged based upon how closely the line matched.
This is a very different sport than what we see today.
At various times, it accounted for then 60, 50, finally 30%, and then they got rid of it in 1990 at the world level, but it affected their score. It was quite dull to watch. And I remember when they got rid of compulsory figures, as a kid, reading the opening line in an article, happy is the sport that the camera smiles upon. I also went back and I watched short videos from sports broadcasts where they would do a little feature program explaining why the person you think should have won figure skating wasn't winning figure skating, where they would show the skaters on the ice tracing these figures, and then you see the judges kneeling on the ice to follow whether one line matches another. There was one case in 1971, there was an American skater, Janet Lynn, who just made everyone fall in love with her on the free skate. The problem is that she was not as strong of a figure skater in terms of where the name comes from. And there was an Austrian skater named Trixie Schuba, who was possibly the most gifted skater ever at tracing a line on the ice that she had traced with one foot on the other foot. And she was like really dull to watch in the free skate. And everyone was wondering, how did this woman who is so boring win? And Janet Lynn, who everyone was in love with, comes in fourth. And you see where it would like affect people's scores. The worth of it went down to 30% and then it disappeared. And why I'm going on about this is it would have still been a component of skating when Tonya Harding was training. And it was really expensive because to learn to make those figures properly and then to get really good at tracing that line, it meant you had to have a lot of ice to yourself for a while. And then you needed fresh ice, so it had to be cleaned up, which meant paying for more rink time where you had that rink to yourself. So they don't even mention it here. And I looked online and there are no videos that I could find of Tonya Harding skating compulsory figures. I found varying information of how strong of a compulsory figure skater she was. But I wanted to put that in there, and it's important, and we don't talk in hit skating, and we don't talk about it.
I gotta say, too, if anyone other than you was telling me all of this, I would think that they were making it up.
No, you can look it up, and you'll find things from like the 84 Olympics, the 88 Olympics, where they're explaining what is up with the compulsory figures. Why is it affecting who wins the medal when that's not what you're seeing? Why are we not broadcasting this? And they're trying valiantly to explain why it matters. You know, diving down a rabbit hole of esoterica is my jam. And I would find people saying, like, modern skaters aren't as strong technically because it really taught you to control the edge, is what they call it.
Yeah.
Like, it really taught you to be conscious of your body. You will find contingents arguing in internet comments about it was boring to watch, who cares, they can jump more times now, and then there'll be people who are saying they are like technically weaker and it messes up their knees and ankles sooner. And if you look at how just like the style and possessions that skaters in the 80s and 90s who came up under this system had, they don't have it anymore. And furthermore, it's not figure skating if you take out the figures. I don't know whose side I'm on. I just love rabbit holes of esoterica.
I'm a very strong believer in proper training. It sounds like it is something that like people should spend like their first couple of years when they're learning how to do, but it doesn't sound like something that should be competitive because who cares?
And someone is saying, oh, look at her possession of the edge out there. It's like, okay, I'll have to take your word on this stick button, or Peggy Fleming, or Dorothy Hamill, or whoever you are, because I seriously don't know. But I brought it up because among all the things that Tonya Harding struggled with, it's another unsung villain, and it also shows you, like, I think it says something about the sport. There are people trying to revive the tracing of figure skating on black ice where the audience can actually see the lines being traced. And of course, in these rabbit holes of esoterica, you will find people saying, well, they should have done it separately on black ice all along and never gotten rid of it. And if people could have watched on black ice, it's no more boring than golf.
Like, people are dying, Kim. I guess like that is very interesting because every sport is expensive, but this is one of those sports that's ultra expensive.
This was a thing that made it more expensive, and it's also kind of ironic that to me that they removed, like, as of 2018 when I, Tonya came out, figure skating was sort of a sport in decline, and there were lots of things that people cited for reasons about that, but there were videos of like old timers from the time that they got rid of the compulsory figures where Scott Hamilton was saying, no, this will hurt the sport because rink owners will have less to make money off of, and then there will be fewer rinks, fewer people will take up the sport.
Okay, Jordan Belfort. Yes, the thriving economic engine of
people having to buy lots of ice time.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. It's also that there's varying reports on, well, was Tonya Harding a strong figure skater? Like how, but again, it's not all out there. So her first competitions are in the 80s. She's shown skating to more rock and roll here than she actually did, because you just plain weren't allowed to play music with vocals in it in competition at all. So if she was doing what's called the exhibition skate, which you might have seen, where after the competition people would do their own thing, which is where you would see Surya Bonali do that flip, and there she could use music that she actually listened to. There's a generation of female skaters where their Olympics was going to be 88, finishing off around the time that Tonya starts. It's not all as black and white as the movie shows. I'm probably going to say this again in here somewhere. So if she needed some genius PR person to say, let's make her the girl Rocky.
I think also like, you know, to your point here, your time in the sun in this sport is very brief.
Yeah, it's rare for someone to have 2 Olympics in them. So unfortunately, what she's known for is that her first husband, Jeff Gillooly, and some untalented goons that he knew and she, to an argued degree, were involved in a scheme around whacking fellow skater Nancy Kerrigan in the knee to prevent her from competing so that Tonya could get one more Olympics in to see if she could be the champion this time. And Tonya was banned from skating it sucks for everyone because she was so talented. It seems like her second marriage, despite the odds, has been a good one and that she's a good mother, but it's none of my business. And she's worked in landscaping and cleaning restaurants. So,
Yes.
Sarah, can you please tell us a little bit about the movie I, Tonya?
Of course. I, Tonya is a 2017 film directed by Craig Gillespie and written by Stephen Rogers. It follows the life and career of American figure skater Tonya Harding and her connection to the incident, the 1994 assault on her rival Nancy Kerrigan. This movie was a hit. It was an $11 million budget and it made $53.9 million. This notably is the first movie produced by Margot Robbie's production company Lucky Chap. I want to just take a moment here to honor the hustle and ingenuity of Margot Robbie, who broke out in The Wolf of Wall Street and immediately set about leveraging the capital of that role to do really interesting work and elevate really interesting artists like Emerald Fennell and Kathy Yan, who directed Birds of Prey. And obviously we all saw what she did for Greta Gerwig and what Greta Gerwig did for her with Barbie. I always want to watch her in things. To me, her portrayal of Harley Quinn is as distinctive a villain as Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman or Heath Ledger's Joker. The kind of performance that elevates the material and does more than that particular film deserved. Either one of them. Also worth noting, the first time she played Harley Quinn, it was opposite alleged sexual abuser Jared Leto playing the Joker as a Hot Topic employee. This was the film set on which Jared Leto was sending people dead animals in the mail and shit like that. I'm assuming he never tried it with Viola Davis, which he shouldn't, and I think he'd be dead if he did. Back to Margot. She is smart. She's the bee's knees. I love her. Craig Gillespie, the director, made Lars and the Real Girl, Cruella, several episodes of Pam and Tommy, a show I liked, but Pamela Anderson hates. So I have to temper that love with her tremendous dislike of that show's existence. And he's also directing Supergirl and has a long resume. He's really good at tone. This movie veers between the absurd and the tragic, but it's never, to me, never heartless. And it's never not on Tanya's side, no matter like the complexities about her that they're exploring. And you know, writer Stephen Rogers, he wrote Hope Float's Stepmom, Kate and Leopold. So he's kind of a rom-com guy before this. But he gives an awful lot of substance to everyone in this. I think this is a really great screenplay.
I do too.
And this screenplay was actually on the blacklist in 2016 before it got picked up for her production with Margot Robbie. Critically, this movie was really, really well received, but there were detractors, mostly around the way that domestic abuse is played in this film. Richard Lawson, who was the film critic at Vanity Fair at the time, called it cheap, cruel, and stupid. Ironic 70s tunes playing over scenes of domestic abuse, played for laughs and all. Manola Dargis at the New York Times wrote, as I, Tonya, skips here and there and the plot thickens, it becomes increasingly baffling why the filmmakers decided to put a comic spin on this pathetic, dispiriting story. I personally don't agree with these criticisms. I happen to disagree with the idea that this was comedy played for cheap laughs. I see it as like the same kind of comedy that, you know, I was watching Goodfellas again this weekend. There's some comedy in Goodfellas, but it's not funny, I believe, when women say they're being abused. But also, I do feel like it's presented in this way where we see that there's an unreliability around the storytelling. We really get a very clear picture of the trauma that Tonya Harding carried with her throughout her life. And we also see where this kind of violence is presented. You know, this kind of violence is just like part of her day-to-day life. It's normalized. And I think that we see like the way that violence can be normalized in really like bad relationships and relationships where you're dependent on each other. I personally didn't feel like it was like ironic music played over domestic abuse played for laughs.
Oh, I agree with you, and we'll get into that. So moving toward talking about the movie, I need to call myself out here because I see examples of where I've been manipulated by the media narrative when I look at my reaction in 1994 versus my reaction in 2018. I remember at the time of the Lillehammer Olympics, but even before that, I remember the newscasters saying over and over again, Tonya Harding makes figure skating look like a sport. Nancy Kerrigan makes it look like an art form. And I self-seriously repeated this to my family over dinner and over the middle school lunch table, but what's since occurred to me is, well, duh, it's a sport. And when I've gone back and watched the videos of those same routines that I saw in the 90s, my reaction is that Tonya Harding was the more exciting skater to watch. Her energy, that she's like electric, that there's a sense, even when you know it's a program, that you have no idea what's about to happen next, that she's really in the moment. But all of this change in my reaction is subsequent to the PR campaign surrounding the release of I, Tonya, so I don't know if I've been swayed yet again by the most prominent media narrative. And at the time, there was a newscaster named John Tesh.
He was an entertainment reporter. He was not a serious news person.
Oh, but they always had him on during the two women's sports that I loved, which were figure skating and gymnastics, and he made everything tawdry. He made everything a sob story. He'd never been an athlete in those things himself. He referred to a gymnast who had been a bronze medalist in Seoul. Her name was Svetlana Boginskaya, and he always referred to her as the Belarusian swan. They always had him covering women's sports, and he did them a disservice every time he was on. But
that's weird.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind everyone of John Tesh sucking, and my sense that in reevaluating this, have I been swayed by a narrative yet again? Like, do I even have the critical skills to know what I think at all?
I will also,
Thank
though,
you, Sarah.
I will cop to being manipulated by the media narrative at the time. Like, the 1990s, like, what a time to be alive. So, like, Scandal was just, like, manufactured to fill all this news time, and it wasn't just kind of, like, thrust upon us in the way it is now. We're, like, in the brainwashing scenes in A Clockwork Orange, where it's just, like, being thrust at us constantly and being forced down our throats. Like, it had to be kind of, like, created and spun. It was OJ, the Menendez brothers, Lorena Bobbitt, all of these news events around, like, really serious incidents. Yeah, Amy Fisher. Really serious incidents of domestic abuse and murder and child abuse that were all just one big fucking joke that we could all detach from and treat it like it was pro wrestling. Like, we all just kind of, like, sat on an uncompassionate throne of judgment for, like, the entire decade. And I will cop to being a part of it, but I was a child and my brain wasn't fully developed. And I don't know what Jay Leno tells himself, because he was leading the charge on all of this just being a big fucking joke. You know, like, O.J. Simpson murdered his wife. This was just part of, like, the comedy of, like, look, these crazy people doing crazy shit.
In terms of issues that Tonya Harding had with judges, her mother once remarked that Tonya would have come in first if all the skaters had to wear the same leotard, and I think she has a point. And Nancy Kerrigan had 2, arguably 4 things, depending on how you do the math, going for her that Tonya Harding did not, those things being a stable 2-parent home and cheekbones, 2 of them. No designers saw Tonya as an opportunity to show off their designs, while Nancy had a working relationship with Vera Wang. And this reminds me of how designers don't want to dress Bryce Dallas Howard for the red carpet because she is a size 8 instead of a size 2 or 4. And can't wear the sample sizes, which means that she frequently has to show up for the red carpet in, oh my gosh, clothes that she paid for herself and has been photographed wearing in public multiple times, because nobody wants their designs to be seen on this disgustingly obese size 8 woman.
It infuriates me that no one wants to dress her because she's so fucking gorgeous. Like, look at her face. And her body is banging, and people should be so lucky as to dress her. All we can do is hope that at some point we're going to clone Christian Siriano, because he seems to be the only designer interested in dressing women with different body types.
And in terms of my memory being off, when I went back and I watched those old skating videos, I had this memory of Tonya Harding being like this pug-nosed cute with bunchy muscles, and that's an exaggeration. I think she, by regular world non-Hollywood standards, she was pretty. The costumes she was wearing were like home. We'll get into them. Like, Tonya Harding thought that they had somehow found her old costumes out there somewhere because they got it down that it was spandex you could have bought at Joann's, R.I.P., and that it was thick and it was bunchy and that it didn't fit her well, and that it was like a budget approximation by someone who was not into sewing for its own sake of what do they want from me?
Yeah. But yeah, so I think though that like 8th grade Rena and adult Rena can share the same space, because I think the answer is that like we should have room for both of these types of figure skaters, and we should see them both as an art, and we should see them both as athletes who are deeply dedicated to their craft.
Yeah.
And Tonya is exciting to watch, and Nancy is very elegant. Why can't we live in a world where they are both appreciated as they are? I sound ridiculous.
And why do they have to be viciously pitched against each other when there's sportsmanship? Why do we pit women against each other in such a nasty way?
Well, and also they were literally on the same team.
Yeah, it's supposed to be about bringing medals home for America.
And, you know, it shouldn't feel like you're competing on an island when it is supposed to be a team. Anyway,
and I know that Tonya did bad things, that she's had a lot of judgment over the years, and so are there people out there who have the same or worse or analogous cards to Tonya's stacked against them and still reach their fullest potential and don't commit felonies? Here's the thing. We make a fuss over exceptional people for precisely the reason that they are exceptional, and you can't spell exceptional without exception.
Watching this, I was reminded again of the line in All the President's Men where Deep Throat says to them, like, the truth is these aren't very bright guys and things got out of hand. And that's kind of like what I feel like happened here. Like, it was stupid and it stayed stupid, and it wasn't a well thought through strategy. I don't think anybody was thinking with like their fully evolved brains around this.
I would agree. What if she'd met a better dude when she was in high school?
Yeah. That'd be okay.
We open on the sound of coughing and rapid cuts between interviews of Margot Robbie as Tonya Harding, Sebastian Stan as Jeff Gillooly, and Allison Janney as Tanya's mother, Lavana. And God, Allison, she almost gets us on her wavelength of making her think that her parenting style is warranted at points in this, which is crazy. She's so good in this. And there are many unreliable narrators in here, so I knew from the get-go that I wasn't going to be able to give this more than like a 5 for accuracy, because there are so many unreliable narrators, and all of these people have probably been altering things in their heads. And there's that thing she says at the end about everybody's got their own truth. And that's the viewpoint that this operates in.
There is like sort of a strange like meta level accuracy that's happening here that I, spoiler alert, graded it really high for, and that it really accurately captures the time, and I think also the conflicting way one would look back on this time period. Like this movie and the screenplay to me are very sophisticated because the setup is that documentary style that I love. What this movie does is pull a really good trick where that kind of style could give you the kind of space to have that ironic distance that we all had in the 90s, where everything was just like, nobody was real. We were just like living in their weird stories. And this movie refuses to let you off the hook.
We were all feeling the effect of that end of history theory, even if we never got around to reading it before 9/11. Everyone's clothing and style choices are kind of in a 3 to 5 year time warp
Hollywood is really afraid of the real lack of glamour around poverty and to show it accurately. And I think that this movie shows lower middle class and paycheck to paycheck living.
They're just doing the best they can with things. If she looks good, it's because she is working out for 8 hours a day. The homemade stuff doesn't fit her very well. I think I remember seeing a reviewer when I commented this as saying this, that's one of the signs of an abusive relationship. They start to dress the same, but it looked like she just threw on his turtleneck.
That was a thing that people wore at the time. We see Diane here, and Diane's like, Tonya was totally American because of the way that she inspired very strong feelings in people on both sides.
Diane is such a lady. So we meet two other unreliable narrators, the hard copy guy, who is played by Bobby Cannavale, and on an old gray big box TV on a tape, we meet
Sean
Eckert, played by Paul Walter Hauser.
Yeah, put a pin in that. I'm going to talk about him for probably a year.
I remember hearing next up on hard copy or next up on Entertainment Tonight. My parents always shut it off immediately after the 6:30 news was over. And often we didn't like the second half of the news because they would talk about stupid, boring human interest stories and not stuff that was actual news.
And we had all of these shows. It wasn't just hard copy, but hard copy, I recall being the trashiest of them all. It was a trash fire television show. Mm-hmm. And Bobby Cannavale is great in this because he captures the energy that I would assume that they had in the hard copy offices, as well as his look is just hideous. He's got spiked tips
Gel
and
spikes.
Overly tan, and he's a huge douchebag.
And he is wearing Italian loafers with no socks. We have another major case here of the phenomena I call U 2.0, where whoever plays you in the movie is better looking than you are, unless your name is Roger Taylor of the band Queen, because no man has ever looked prettier than Roger Taylor. Even with all the work they do with the hair and the makeup and the braces and how Margot Robbie carries herself, they still can't hide the fact that she is one of the most classically beautiful women ever to have walked on this planet.
They do their best with Margot Robbie and Sebastian Stan, who is also an unbelievably stunning individual. Mm-hmm. They try, but there's no getting around the fact that they're both beautiful people.
When he comes on, he apologizes for the mustache as Jeff Gillooly. It shows him in his subsequent wife's hair salon, where he's sitting in front of Wicker with pictures up. And he apologizes for the mustache. The thing is that he now has that beard fluff that just sits on the lower part of the chin, and it looks just as bad.
Yeah. But he had the rattiest little mustache, though.
Either shave everything off or do the trimmed beard and mustache. Every other thing doesn't work.
Because everyone is a child to me who's younger than me, I do forget that there's an increasingly large pool of people who weren't alive for this. I did my best at the top here to describe what this time was like and how absurd it was and awful it was. But the first 10 minutes of this movie really nail it. Mm-hmm. They really get you back to that place where you're like, oh, it was hard copy. Everything was stupid. The triple axel, they couldn't find a female stunt skater who could do this for the movie, so they had to fake it on computer.
So yeah, she deserved the fuss that they made over her. You can judge her triple axel against Midori Ito's triple axel and decide which one you like. I mean, I have a hard time telling one jump from another when I'm watching skating.
It's something I can't do, so I'm impressed by both of them. They're both amazing as far as I'm concerned.
I couldn't do a single axel if I trained for years. I don't think I could even do a single toe loop, and I'm only saying that because I know that they make a bigger fuss over axle jumps than over toe loops.
I can barely make it around an ice skating rink without holding onto the side.
Yeah, it took all afternoon for me to get off the wall, and I still didn't know if I was doing it right.
So we kick back to 40 years before. We have our first meeting of little teeny tiny Tonya on the ice and Levana is taking her to skate, and she is smoking.
Levana, not Tonya. Levana is smoking on the ice.
Yes, Tonya hasn't started smoking yet. I don't doubt for a second that everywhere Levana went, she was smoking a cigarette.
Yeah. So they have a very cute little girl playing her at 4.
Yes. And Levana says that Tonya is a, quote, soft 4. And Diane reluctantly agrees to coach her after explaining first she's too young and, too much of a beginner, but she is a natural.
Yeah. They show her skating circles on the ice around the class. And then cut ahead where she's played by McKenna Grace, who was great on The Handmaid's Tale. She's a very good young actress.
She has this wonderful, sorrowful set of eyes. She's great in this. And we see right away that Levana is a monster and a terrible mother. I'm comfortable saying that.
I agree. She's a terrible mother.
She's very cruel to Tonya and justifies it by being like, this is what she needed. This is the right thing for her. We see a sequence where she's hunting with her father. She talks about how Levana made her wear her skating uniform to school for school picture day because that way they could use those photos for competition. And
yeah. And
that's real.
And there's a moment where she says that another little girl in her class called them white trash, so her mother tells her to spit in her milk.
This is not great parenting.
No. Diane keeps trying to get her to fit into a certain mold that they simply do not have the means for. And it isn't fair. And it was true about the rabbit fur coat. I think there was a story I saw that another little girl said, well, mine is fox. And Tonya replied, well, mine is paid for. And honestly, the fox fur coat probably was paid for, too. They make her a rabbit fur coat out of rabbits they skin themselves, and you see what's probably the remains of that coat made into a bomber jacket later. And then they show her dad leaving, and she begs him not to. Actually, her mom left first, and there was a time where she was just living with her dad. We cut to the adult Tonya in the rink. And there was a scene earlier where the mother was telling her, no, don't talk to the other little girl. She's your enemy. She's your competitor. And you get the sense that she's being set up to be quite lonely. And she's not an adult. She's about 15 here. And she has braces on her teeth. And you see her saying, get out of my way to another skater. But when they cut to her skating at that age, it is my favorite use ever, possibly, of, Spirit in the Sky.
It's really well used here. And we see her see Jeff Gillooly for the first time, and he has that sad mustache, and he is hanging out with Sean Eckert. A quick break here to talk about Paul Walter Hauser in this role as Sean Eckert. This is a genius performance. Jesus Christ. And it's so good. Paul Walter Hauser is perfect in this role. You still feel like Sean Eckert is a whole-bodied character, even though he's a ridiculous human being. And I think that is all credit to Paul Walter Hauser. I love watching him in things. This is the movie where I bought my stock in PWH, and I've never regretted it. He was also on a really early episode, or not a really, really early episode, but an earlier episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, playing a juggalo, and was also really funny in that. I just want to make it really clear. I am the person who saw Pearl Jam in the basement of the club with 8 other people with Paul Walter Hauser, and I've been boosting him for nigh onto a decade. I am not a new fan. But anyway, this is an amazing performance. Sean Eckert fashioned himself as a bodyguard / member of the CIA /
international espionage consultant to multiple agencies.
Yeah. And he's none of those things.
No, he is a pathetic guy who lives in his mom's basement watching VHS tapes of Star Trek.
Yes, but man, does he believes his own hype.
Someone who has to tell himself a story to make life bearable, and he believes it. Because otherwise, would you want to go through life thinking you were that guy? It seems like losing your mind is the sane thing to do if that's who you are.
The sincerity of it is fascinating, because it's not like it doesn't feel like a coping mechanism. It feels like he is a true believer in his own nonsense. Jeff asks Tonya out on a date, and Levana comes along. Your mother on any first date is a nightmare, but Levana is like a next level bad wingman.
The mother gives some incredibly inappropriate advice about flowers and gardeners here that I'm going to ask you in a minute to try to decode for me, because I am clueless. She seems like the last person on the planet to be giving relationship advice. Although she's successful at getting married, she's done it 5 times. She doesn't seem to be much good at staying married. She's some sort of evidence that there's someone out there for everyone, no matter how awful they are, which should be rather heartening, given that she's just the worst, and she has found that special someone 5 times. Sarah, do you have any insight into what the hell is going on? What does she mean with this flower gardener metaphor?
So, I've been a party to many bits of dating advice involving flowers and gardens and primrose paths and fast talkers. I'm guessing you could probably picture the age range of the people giving me this advice, but here's how I took it, is that there's one person in the relationship who needs to be constantly tended to, and then there's one person in the relationship who has to do all the work, was how I was interpreting this. And I think what she is saying is that the flower, the person who is the flower, is also incredibly useless and isn't going to do any labor. They are going to sit there and be pretty, and you're going to have to tend to them. And I think what she is basically like saying like is that you're going to have to take care of her because she can't do anything. Like, it's an incredibly insulting way of using this particular metaphor.
The mom is saying all sorts of TMIs that teenagers don't want to hear on a date from a grown-up, especially not someone who... Can you imagine what her puffer coat must smell like?
Yes, I can, as a former smoker.
Someone who wears a puffer coat like 11 months out of the year. There's a moment where she says, I'm a gardener who wants to be a flower. How fucked is that? Who cares? Like, why are you giving us this TMI? And then she also says to them, are you fucking yet?
Which I was like, is this their first date?
Yes, this is their first date, because she says that it is her first date, which makes it their first date.
This is a scene where sometimes you see a parent portrayed in a movie, and the movie is illustrating very clearly how much that individual shouldn't have become a parent.
Earlier on, they showed us where Tonya wanted to get off of the ice and use the bathroom, and she's like, I'm paying for the ice, and you see her peeing out on the ice. You see Levana beating her with a hairbrush, which is a thing that happened. And God, Allison Janney is so good, because there are these seconds where she almost gets you into her rationale or gets you to make excuses for her, and it's crazy. And I think she's doing a very good job at that thing that I always mention about you are your character's lawyer, which I learned in it. It was a miserable acting class in college. It was taught by some guy from the San Francisco mime troupe who told me I didn't know how to use anything below the neck.
We see Jeff and Tonya talking about their lives, hanging out. He has a job where he drives disabled people places. She quit school to skate.
Right. He tells her to get a GED later. And this is just bad parenting that she didn't get a high school diploma.
Again, like her mom kind of commodifying her while abusing her, being like, you're going to be my gravy train and you are also going to be my punching bag. We also see here too that it doesn't take long for the relationship to turn physically abusive. And we also hear how it doesn't really raise red flags for her because of her history, where it's kind of been a part of who she is. And she makes the point, she's like, Nancy gets hit one time and the whole world shits. And she's pointing out like how many times she is struck or punched, or like how many physical fights that she gets in with Jeff.
The world saw Nancy get hit and nobody knew that this was happening to Tonya.
Like, none of these two things should have happened. I also, like, I believe her I believe her interpretation of events. I believe that Jeff probably did indeed hit her.
She sees him working on the back of his car and she's like, oh, here, let me turn this. And you see her wipe off the grease on her magenta jeans. And then she starts off trying to impress him. She's like, we had money until I got a fur coat. And he's like, no, we were always poor. And she's like, yes, too. They are so bad for each other. Sometimes you have horrible relationships where their overall purpose turns out to be to get you in shape for a decent one, but not like this.
This was her first boyfriend. And she clearly wasn't exposed to much on that front relationship wise. Of course, everything he did seemed right because she grew up in a household with this mother who was incredibly cruel to her. I don't know much about Jeff's background, but I can't imagine that he had a ton of experience in relationships either. And
he says, I had no game.
Yeah. So there you go. Galuli denies that he hit her and says that she was the one who was abusive to him. I think both things are true. I believe that this was probably a relationship where both people were getting hit. And I very much long not to diminish the seriousness of that on either side, but particularly for a woman, it's a very dangerous place to be. And
agreed.
Levana is supportive of the relationship, she says, but not without being incredibly cruel to her about it. And then we cut to a competition where we see how much she doesn't fit in with the other skaters. She's skating to rock music. She's smoking. Her style is different.
Not on the ice. She smokes before she goes on the ice. So some notes on this performance. She couldn't skate competitively to rock music with lyrics like she's shown doing here because you couldn't skate to music with vocals until very recently. She skated to a bunch of things where Diane told her this will make the judges happy, and it doesn't feel right when she's doing it. Also, this is a real costume that she had, but I went and I looked at that particular performance, and actually no, it was to instrumental music, not rock music. It's electrifying, over the way they film it here is electrifying, the real life version is electrifying, but actually that particular competition, the judges scored her in the high fives and she won the silver medal. What this is an approximation of how she was generally treated. It's a generalization of problems she had with judges where they use this particular competition. And that was the costume they picked out. So I wanted to bring that up here. But they show her skating to Sleeping Bag by ZZ Top. And I find this so electric to watch. But the judges don't agree. They give her a bunch of 4/8s and 4/7s. Levana tells her, you skated like a graceless bulldyke, which disagree.
Wow. Cruel for layers of reasons. It reinforces the point. We let male athletes be bad boys. You think about how Dennis Rodman was about to happen to the degree that Dennis Rodman happened, and we were all delighted and charmed by it. So yeah, Levana says that and is incredibly, incredibly unkind to her. Anne throws the knife at her and it lands in her arm, and she's like, I'm gonna move out. Which is a good decision. However, it's a real out of the frying pan into the fire situation because she moves in with Jeff.
Yeah, and it seems like things are great at first.
This movie does a clever trick here where you're seeing them happy, but you're also seeing them fight. And we see her making this very hideous pink skating outfit, which is just not her. It's so not her thing to the degree of she's just putting bows on it. And it's just this nightmare pink frock. And we see her compete again. And she has ultimately this confrontation with, skating over to the judges and being what is it that you need me to do? And they basically are you have no class. And she tells them to suck her dick. And this is literally false.
yeah, this didn't precisely happen, but there's that one part where they show what the fights are like, where you see her like doing whatever the thing is with the rifle, and she's like, I never did this. And it's really funny. Just like the way that they have these little fourth wall breakages when they're talking about what did or didn't happen.
Yeah.
I love how they do that here. But like, the thing is, she's just not a fashion person, which is okay. She likes to fix cars and drive trucks, and all of her costumes for skating look like how someone with no interest in fashion would approximate what they thought they were supposed to have on no budget with low quality materials. Like, there were stories about how when her mother was making her costume, she would place the sequins so that they cut into her thighs. I keep thinking, is there no one in the entire Pacific Northwest with an eye for design who could have tapped in on like the various emerging 90s minimalist or the menswear as women's wear double-breasted suit lingering 80s aesthetics and made her a costume that looked good and felt authentically Tonya and gave them the benefit of a little free advertising? And the answer, of course, is no, because it didn't happen.
She would have looked wonderful if she had been able to do just like something like a basic black with maybe just a little bit of something like that didn't feel unnatural to her.
There were a few costumes, the ones that had looked a little bit military inspired, I thought looked good on her.
Yeah. But even then, it's still too much. It's still not her. After this incident, which is literally false but kind of spiritually true, she and Diane have a big fight, and they're done for now. And then we have this amazing quote from Sean Eckert of, I remember the time he took her to a Richard Marx concert, and that's when I knew shit was serious. And,
who's Richard Marx?
Oh my gosh, Richard Marx. Staple of the Light FM of the late 80s and early 90s, Richard Marx. He sang the songs Hold On to the Night and Should Have Known Better. Hold on to the night. Hold on to the memory. Wish that I could give you more. I could be yours. I grew up proximate to, but not part of the culture that is shown in this movie. But nevertheless, Richard Marx was a very talented singer-songwriter, and he has written a ton of other songs for other artists too, and had a sort of like a 5-disc career as a superstar performer before kind of going back into just songwriting. Anyway, they get married.
Yes, she wears a very big fluffy dress.
Oh my gosh. And Levana refuses to put her coat down for photos at the wedding.
Tonya has this brief season in the sun. Later when they get to 94, she's like, my whole life's been building to I have this. And the thing is, that had actually all already happened to her in 91 into 92. A time where she had the momentum from the triple axel was so brief, and she really didn't do herself any favors, as we'll see, in terms of neglect. And I've read background that she was worried about losing Jeff, which I'm like, best thing that God, win gold in 92 and lose the mustache dude sounds amazing, but that wasn't how she saw that. She said earlier, if I landed the triple axel, they'd have to give me my scores. And she does it.
Yeah.
And when you see the video of her landing, she jumps so high and she has this little fist pump like, yes.
Yeah.
And I feel like some of them, so she actually got a few 6.0s in there when it really happened. At least a couple 6.0s in the scores. And I'm wondering if the fist pump might have lost her something, but I don't know.
I can't hold it against her, but I am not a figure skating judge. Margot Robbie is so wonderful in this sequence too, where when she's talking about it, the way that she brings you back there into that moment with Tonya is like, it gives you a little chill. It's really, really cool. At the same time that all of this is going on, like there's also this sense of she's not a good fit for the image that we want for our US skating team. she and Jeff have a very large fight in which they break up.
Once she lands the triple axel, there's this scene where you see Levana pays someone to heckle her on the way in to the championship, and she had this one really strong season. She gets mad at Jeff that there aren't Dove bars, and he says that Eskimo bars are okay. I guess she's seen beyond that. And she said earlier that marrying him was what enabled her to just skate. But you see in the run-up to the Olympics that she's partying, that her weight is up, that she isn't really taking seriously all the things she needs to do to have her shot. And what really kind of breaks my heart for her is that she arrives late for the Olympics. She doesn't take part in the opening ceremony parade. All of these things that are supposed to be part of this once-in-a-lifetime thing, she doesn't claim her place.
I don't actually want to go back in time and try and support her from a public relations standpoint, but I kind of do. Just be like, you need to go to these things. There was no one giving her the kind of guidance and that she needed. We have a mom who is really way too good at tough love.
She had people guiding her on the skating, but on how to win while being herself in the world, there were people who could have done that. I don't think it's impossible. It just wasn't one of the strokes of luck that she did have.
We meet Nancy Kerrigan for the first time here at this point.
Nancy isn't really a fully fleshed out character here, but she doesn't really need to be. If they'd been close, I don't think it would have happened. But remember, her mother's already prepped her don't make friends.
It's interesting because Nancy is also very working class. She just hit it better.
Everyone always said, oh, she looks like Katharine Hepburn. And she was always wearing very simple white things. And she had a domineering mother too, but they had that tearjerker story of... And no, it isn't... Right, her mom was blind, and you would always see her mother with her nose 2 inches away from a monitor so that she could see the outline of Nancy skating. And her dad
worked 3 jobs.
He was a welder.
Nancy came from the same kind of background as Tonya in a lot of ways. You did mention the stability in the household, and clearly also the support that she was able to get from that stability and that family unit set her up better for the success. But she was able to be more polished.
A lot of that had so much to do with the particular roll of the dice on what kinds of looks they had.
The bangs, man. It was a hard time in America. Do not get me wrong. Everyone was doing really stupid stuff with their hair. But yeah, if someone had just been like, we need to grow these out and you need to not poof them.
And should any of this mattered when she could do, when if she was taking care of herself, she could nail it.
Yeah.
But
but she really washes out and comes in fourth.
Oh, but do you know who also came in fourth at the Olympics and had not one but 2 movies?
Steve Prefontaine.
Yeah.
Oh.
What does he have that Tonya Harding doesn't? Or did he have that Tonya Harding doesn't?
Well, he has a penis, and also he didn't survive to get busted for drunk driving.
No.
We see that they, at one point, have a really, really big fight that ends with the police coming. Mm-hmm. And Jeff maybe brings a gun to the house and tries to shoot her.
Or himself.
Yeah. Unclear. I don't doubt for a second that things like this happened probably between them in some form or fashion.
There's one thing where he drives to Sun Valley, where she has a competition, to walk in and say, no, fuck you, and then leave, and this somehow gets her to look at him with fresh eyes. Young people are so stupid.
They truly are.
There's reasons we don't put them in charge of things.
No one is legally allowed to rent a car in this relationship. When you come in fourth in the Olympics, as she points out, if you are not Steve Prefontaine and about to be the subject of not one, but two glossy biopics about that time you watched the Munich Olympics tragedies unfold on television. She's back in Oregon. She's waiting tables.
Like, she was training and eating whatever she got from, like, Spud Central or wherever while Nancy had a dietitian.
Diane shows up and they talk about how the Olympic Committee has decided to shift the timeline and stagger the Olympics to be every 4 years, but on different cycles.
So the Winter and the Summer Olympics used to be the same year, which was also always leap year and always the same year as U.S. presidential elections. And they decided to move the Winter Olympics to mid-cycle. So there was like that possibility of having another Olympics. Remember, she had that shot and she didn't really do what she should have with it.
No.
Or
and
could have.
I remember when this happened. This was a big deal when this changed. And
there were cases of people who played multiple sports and thus won medals in both in the same year, which is crazy.
Yes, the 90s, man. And she and Diane decide to train together again, and she is going to follow what Diane tells her to do.
Yeah, well, there was one point where she fired Dodie and then didn't have a coach. She had Jeff filming her on a video camcorder. This lasted for like 9 weeks or something.
It's too long to have Jeff Gillooly being in charge of your career.
Why is he her manager? Like,
I mean, there was no one else. There was no like other lifeguard on duty.
You see her taking off the blue nail polish. What's funny to me now is I feel like ever since 2008 or so, you could wear dark nail polish or unusual shade. When we were growing up, if you wanted like blue or green nail polish, you went to Wet and Wild in the cosmetics aisle.
We're at the point where she and Gillooly are getting back together and they're starting to hatch the scheme.
And the judges are still giving her low scores, and they're saying, we need a wholesome American family. So she meets up with her mother to say, and Levana is impossible. And Levana tells her, you were soft. I made you a champion. And I don't know. I think she's looking for, like, I can't blame her because she's 23. She's looking for something that she isn't going to get. And see, when I I think, you know what? If she told her mother, I need you to fake being wholesome, like, we need to be able to tell a story to the press, we need to do this, and explained it exactly like it was, instead of looking for her mother to confirm something for her before she tells her directly, here is one more thing I need you to do.
Yeah.
The problem is that would not occur to her.
I was just going to say that, like, Nancy's in Tonya's head.
And also there's the whole thing about, it's called Tuna Can Arena, where you see her write down things with the name of the rink. Because they concoct this, someone calls in a death threat against Tonya. There's this idea of sending letters to mess with Nancy's head. And what Tonya actually needs is for everyone to tell her to remember that she's doing something that she loved in the first place. And, like,
I mean, it is wild how, like how no one around her has her best interests at heart.
Diane doesn't know how to let her be her. And it's because I do love that scene where Diane shows up and they show Tonya having her Rocky montage of all the things she did to pull it together to get her Olympic slot.
And, But the fact that their solution to dealing with the fact that Tonya has gotten a death threat call put into her, which, spoiler alert, it's Sean Eckert who placed the call because he wanted to drum up some interest in his bodyguard business that he is running. Not only is he not qualified to do the job itself. But I also can't imagine a world where he is doing hiring and management of others.
Well, you see the people that he hires and manages. I love the use of the song Gloria in this.
Oh, yeah.
All of the needle drops are so good. And especially the way that they capture kind of the time warp that everyone because we're still in kind of a pre-internet era where parts of the country are like 2 or 3 years behind on the trend wheel.
And also people who like classic rock, you get encased in amber at a certain point and you go no further.
It's crazy to me that you could send people across the country for $1,000.
Well, that right there, I'm not going to pretend I know a lot about hiring a hitman. I don't. But I do know that $1,000, like, you're going to get what you paid for.
Yeah, Derek and Shane are like, yeah, this is what you can get for $1,000. Like, how are they even able to cover motel expenses or anything on...
You're not. You're
right.
not.
And these guys are clearly, you get what you pay for when you're hiring hit people. This guy, Derek, whose name we probably shouldn't even be saying.
Again, the genius of Paul Walter Hauser, the delivery of this line. I know a guy, shouldn't even say his name, Derek. Sean Eckert is trying to set up Derek as so dangerous that, yeah, you shouldn't even invoke his name in conversation unless you are damn serious about hiring your $1,000 hitman.
It's more like Derek is so dangerous because anything you hire him for will be doomed to fail.
I have praised Sebastian Stan, but his work with Paul Walter Hauser in this movie is really amazing. His reactions to this scheme, where initially it is positioned as we're going to send her some threatening letters.
It's so dumb, and they're all 23, 26. They are all just babies, and they're all so fucking dumb. They shouldn't be married. It's a good idea that none of them can rent items.
To quote Joe Pesci in Casino, he's at one point talking about someone, and he's like, this guy could fuck up a cup of coffee. And, like, these guys could fuck up a cup of coffee. Like, I want to be clear that I don't know a ton about what I'm talking about here in terms of hiring a hitman, but they don't even seem acquainted in any passing fashion as to what a hitman would do.
Yes.
Like, at one point when they get arrested, the cops are like, yeah, you guys charged everything. They're not very good criminals.
Yeah, this guy, we shouldn't even be saying his name. Derek.
No.
Just saying his name will make you a failure at everything you try to do for the rest of your life.
Sean's crew is not great. And he and Tanya are fighting, and there's 2 amazing lines here. One, both delivered by Paul Walter Hauser, where they're talking about, like, what the plan is, and he's like, balls are already being played with. And then also he says to Tanya, shit to fry is a meal best served never. He thinks he's
so smug about how clever he thinks he is for thinking of something that would be puerile coming from a 4-year-old.
Like, let me deliver the meanest insult I can to Sean Eckert. I don't think he could get hired by ICE. He played this role so perfectly. There's nothing I can add to it. Part of the humor is the absolute delusional confidence of a man who believes everything he is saying.
Yeah, he could be in the cabinet now.
Yeah. Honestly, like, I actually bet they would let him be on ICE.
So this thing where Tanya finally calls him out on his bullshit at the rink. If someone tells me that I'm nothing or objects to what I'm doing, and I'm emotionally invested in that, I'm going to double down on it at them. What sort of sucks is that when you think that you've put someone in their place because they suck, actually that can be the thing that gives them the determination to prove to you and to the world that they are what they say they are. It gives him that bit of conviction to have all his balls stay in the air just to prove that he is the international man of mystery he believes he is.
it doesn't work out that well.
Doesn't it suck that, like, when you tell someone who is a piece of shit that they're a piece of shit, they don't take it to heart and change?
It is kind of a bummer. So we see Shane and Derek, whose name I shouldn't even mention. We see them driving to where Nancy is practicing.
They think she's in Massachusetts, and then it turns out she's in Detroit.
They get to the rink, and this all just goes stupidly.
Derek, whose name we shouldn't even be saying, tells Shane, and both of them are in a sweat, don't look at them. If they can't see your eyes, they can't identify you. Yes, they can.
This is a level of amateur that it offends the sensibilities.
Derek is the one who tells Shane how to do the whacking, and I can't tell if it's hair gloop or just sweating.
Yeah, I mean, they were probably very nervous, and also, like, they probably hadn't showered because $1,000
it does
probably
not get
doesn't
you
even
to
buy
a hotel with running water.
Yeah. And
yeah,
again, a proper hitman, like, I think you have to show them front money. Again, I don't know what I'm talking about. I want to be clear.
Right. We later see Sean saying they paid him $55,000 when he tells virtually everybody everything within 2 days of the attack. I don't understand why he thinks this is a good idea.
Yeah, it's a very poorly executed assault, and we see that Shane can't get out of the arena after the whack, and he basically, like, uses his head to smash the glass and leaves, like, a Derek shaped hole in the glass door. Like, or is it a Shane shaped hole?
No, oh my gosh, you're right. Shane leaves a Derek shaped hole in the glass, like that. Who's the fruit punch guy from the commercials?
Oh, it's very much the High C commercial.
Yes.
And then they get in the car and they drive away, and
good glory, Gloria.
I mean, so good. And then we see that Galooly hears the news and goes to Sean and is like, what the hell did you do? And he says, I changed the course of history, if you've been watching. During this scene, I had to stop myself from just basically transcribing every line, because everything that Sean Eckert says in response to Jeff in an attempt to explain why this happened and why it went down the way it did is just, like, ridiculousness on top of it. And, like, Paul Walter Hauser's performance in this scene, and Sebastian Stan's just a aghast reaction at everything that he's saying. This convinces me the Oscars this year of this film, 2018 Oscars for 2017 movies, it should have been a competition between two men for Best Supporting Actor, and it should have been Paul Walter Hauser versus Michael Stolberg in Call Me By Your Name. It's a fucking crime that neither of these men were nominated in my fantasy league. I have seen Three Billboards Outside of Ebbings, Missouri and whatever, and, like, Sam Rockwell is wonderful. He's always great. But, like, the fact that Hauser wasn't in the conversation, and also isn't in the conversation for everything on the planet because he elevates all of the material, it's just insane. Like, this is such a great performance. This is him picking up the whole movie and taking it with him in his backpack like Luke did with Yoda on Dagobah.
Yeah. And
he's like, this is my movie now.
Yeah, and he's keeping it together even though his parents taped over his favorite Star Trek episode on VHS so that they could commemorate him being a criminal on CNN.
My parents taped over my favorite Star Trek episode to record the CNN segment, but I'm keeping it together. Oh my God.
Yeah, and I also love when it happens when you see Levana in her restaurant look at the TV and she says, mustache. No, there are moments where that character almost becomes like, oh God. Like when she tells Tonya, you fuck dumb, you don't marry dumb.
Some of her insights walk all the way up to, but then back away from being good advice. We see, we see Tonya skating in the nationals and doing superbly, and she wins.
Well, she missed a jump that she said she was going to do, but she still wins.
Yeah,
so
and
it's possible she could have come in second anyway, even with Nancy there, and gone legitimately.
Yes, very possible. And we see Allison Janney watching her at this point, watching her on TV. And there's like Allison Janney won all the awards for this movie. And it's well deserved, not just for this performance, which she did in 8 days, but also for an entire body of outstanding work that she has delivered forever and ever. She absolutely deserved the award for this. And this scene right here, like watching Tonya skate, is just like a masterclass of your face taking the audience on a journey with you. And you feel like the envy and the pride and the hate and the resentment and all of like that mishmash of feelings. She can't find a productive way to verbalize and manage and show up as a mother for her daughter. And then we see that the FBI comes to talk to Tonya and Jeff about whether or not they know anything. And Tonya and Jeff are terrible at dealing with the FBI, as I think most of us would be, because most of us are not sociopaths.
I think I'd be pretty bad at dealing with the FBI.
Oh my gosh, like
I'd be terrible.
They could get me to confess to like the Kennedy assassination.
You weren't born yet.
It doesn't matter. I'm sure that like I am not someone who would hold up under any sort of interrogation. I'm the worst liar. We find out that the person who hasn't been keeping what happened on lock is Sean.
Of course. He's been bragging to everyone and saying that $55,000 changed hands. And he's like trying to impress people in dimly lit, mostly empty stripper bars.
Probably like 8 out of 10 people who heard him tell this probably just thought he was like an insane person.
Mm-hmm.
And then the FBI comes to Sean's house and he does terribly.
Oh yeah, and the stuff he's saying, I don't know a Tony Herring.
Oh my gosh.
No, he's like, I don't know a Tonya Harding, and then they were just like, I don't know her well. Sorry, I thought you said Nancy Herring.
Oh my God.
What is this?
I don't even think this is like stuff that you would see in like Soldier of Fortune, like as advice. I think he thinks this is good agentry. Mm-hmm. And I think that is entirely of his own creation. Like, I don't even think he got bad advice from somewhere.
I don't understand how, like, if his parents are smart enough to not lose their house, I don't see how they could have such a dumb kid. I don't understand how such a stupid person exists.
I think, as we've discussed when we talk about like people needing to have like 1 billion children back in a certain time period, because like a third of those children will die.
They were all born after vaccines at a time when people actually vaccinated.
Where I would connect Sean Eckert and the notion of needing to have 1 billion children in order to like have a couple come out okay. I think that he, like sometimes a kid's a dud. And there's no working around that. So the FBI is like, okay, can you help us hook Galooly? He calls Jeff and he's talking about how he needs money because he needs to extricate his guys from the hit location, which, I mean, yeah, if you only give him $1,000, how are they getting out of there? He is so bad at wearing a wire when he goes to meet Galooly for food that Galooly immediately knows what's up. We find out at this point that Jeff, obviously we know Jeff was involved, but Tonya didn't know that they were going to kneecap her. That's Galooly's version of the story. There are other versions of the story about whether or not Tonya knew and what her level of involvement was, but that's what the film is going with, and I'm fine with that. I don't think it matters.
I think that at this point, everyone believes whatever they've said the last 20 times they said it and forgot what they said the 20 times before that.
at this point, like everyone's done their punishment for it and everything. So I can't imagine that she didn't know at least a little bit. It is possible that she didn't know that they were going to take it that far. I mean, who knows? Nevertheless.
Everybody sings like birds to the FBI. Jeff talks to the FBI. Tonya talks to the FBI. At one point, Tonya and Jeff have a meeting with Diane's husband. One of them says, it was only supposed to be letters. They don't have their stories straight at all, and they never should have done this thing in the first place. She should have stuck to skating. He should have stuck to driving the bus. Neither of them should have ever dealt with International Agent of Espionage Sean Eckert or the man whose name you shouldn't even be saying, Derek. Everyone should have just stayed in their lane.
Where is Gloria Allred or whoever to like sweep in here and like guide her through this experience and help her? Like, no one is helping her. I would expect the US Olympics group, whoever runs that ship, to come in and be like, hey, let's get you through this experience.
Remember, they don't like it that she's the champion. The whole reason she got back with him was because, like, they told her they needed to see a stable fan, and it was BS. She does go into that they try to kick her off the Olympic team and she countersues. She sues them for $10 million.
Like, this is so much crazy to happen in such a limited window of time.
Yeah.
This is all, what, before the games? 6 weeks?
It was a tight focus for Nancy Kerrigan to get that knee healed in time.
We see an interview with Sean. He's interviewed by a hard copy type of show, and he's explaining that he's a secret agent, and we're seeing some actual journalism.
Well, that's Diane Sawyer.
Okay.
Where she's the one who's saying,
oh, that
but
was
you
her.
Aren't.
Yeah. It's a mess. It's chaotic. Of course her skating is suffering. I think also here, like, we see how awful this is for Tonya. And like you made a point earlier, and I'm going to just hammer down on it again. Like, these are all these people are all very young. She has no education. And also, you know, Nancy Kerrigan was what, 24? This is a tremendous amount of chaos to happen at such a point in your life, and to be trying to manage it and like dealing with tabloid reporters slashing your tires so you come out of the house. And the fact that reporters were just camped outside of her apartment in The Price of Gold. You see the footage of how she was training at like a mall ice skating rink. Because
yes, she trained at a mall rink.
Yeah, and just the way like
people could come watch her. So if you went to the Portland Mall, and this is one of the things that Taffy Brodesser-Akner brings up, if you went to the Portland Mall in the early 90s, seeing Tonya Harding do triple axels was just a thing you saw.
Which is crazy. And then also on top of that, what is crazy is like that she had no privacy in the middle of this shitstorm, and everyone was just like able to go wherever she was and watch her and film her. And it's really pretty disturbing. And at this point, she gives the mic drop line. She said, I was loved for a minute, then I was hated, then I was just a punchline. It was like being abused all over again, only this time it was by you. All of you. You're all my attackers too. And if this line isn't how we treated women in the 1990s in a nutshell, I don't know what is.
Yeah. And I just want to go back and say, I just want to say that, like, any quote-unquote sports reporting done by John Tesh was tawdry, and it was not sports reporting. No one ever would have covered men's sports with the claptrap schmaltz that he covered women's sports with then. What John Tesh's sports coverage makes me think of is that SNL skit called Chess for Girls, where you see these two girls getting upset and they're like, chess is for boys. So they bring out a chess set where all the pieces are like pink and lavender with like long hair you can brush on it. So the knight looks like a My Little Pony. And that is what John Tesh's coverage of gymnastics and figure skating and any women's sport that they put him on looked like.
So John Tesh, a couple other things about John Tesh that I remember from the 90s.
He also writes new age music, which I do not listen to.
He does write new age music. He wrote the theme song to NBA, like the NBA games, and has made an awful lot of money off of that. Also, I don't know if they're still married, but he married Connie Selica, the actress, in the 90s. And it wasn't either of their first marriages, but they did not consummate that relationship until after their marriage. And I remember that, like from People magazine or Ladies Home Journal or something. That is a fact that sits in my brain and probably has replaced someone's birthday.
So when you were saying that, I thought you were about to say did not consummate their marriage ever.
I mean, no, they talked about how they had a heck of a honeymoon in the People magazine /
give me a break.
I know. I was like, this is gross.
Boundaries.
Even at the time, I was like, this is repulsive. I don't need this information. Instead of like the little girl in the ring, like her face being the last thing I see before I die, it's going to be like John Tesh and Connie Selica's wedding night. Anyway, but I also feel like this is a moment too where I love when a movie sticks your face in a pile of your smug and tells you to fuck off. I'm about to randomly mention like Napoleon Dynamite did this incredibly well.
I actually loved that movie. I laughed so hard at that scene where Uncle Rico buys the time machine.
Oh my God.
And yeah.
Brilliant character actor John Grease. Yes. So good in that movie. When he goes on to perform the dance at the election ceremonies, that is an amazing reversal that the movie does to you, where you realize like you're being a dick and you're laughing at human sincerity, and it like brings you joy, but it also makes you realize you've been complicit in something terrible. This is the moment too where you realize like these people are ridiculous, but they're serious and they're real. Like Sean and Derek are ridiculous, but they're human beings. And this movie is like, and I apologize to my mother if she has made it this far. Fuck you for thinking otherwise. Fuck you for how you destroyed this woman because of how we just like to hate in this country. The best art. And I guess I am putting Napoleon Dynamite in that category right now. Whatever. It's our show. I can do what I want. Holds up a mirror and makes you look at yourself and the world around you and ask questions about your own behavior. This moment is kind of jarring in that you're like, oh, I was a part of the problem. And as I said earlier, though, we were children. I don't know what Jay Leno's excuse is.
I was just repeating what I heard on TV, and I thought I was so smart.
Oh, I just sucked up whatever they told me. And then at this point, Lavana shows up at her door and starts talking to her and tells her that she's proud of her. In the puffer coat. She's telling her that she's proud of her. And of course, she has a tape recorder in her pocket because she's trying to get something for the media. Tanya's having a real moment where she thinks her mother is going to be a good mother to her, or like at least attempt to change her ways. And you realize like, oh no, that's fake too. And I was just like, wow, hard copy. Bravo for being the most impressive bunch of grave rapers of the 90s. Like, you're actually the worst.
Of course they are. And then she goes to the Olympics. I feel bad for her that she doesn't seem to have gotten that much joy out of being at the Olympics either time. So there's the whole thing with the laces and where she skated to music from Jurassic Park.
I remember her going up and her laces being broken and her showing the judges. And
I'm like, this is so important. Everything's riding on it. Why isn't she or someone around her like making sure she has spare laces? Why are all these things left to go wrong with skates and laces?
It's so telling too that it's a world where like picking a John Williams score would be considered like the edgiest shit on the planet.
I mean, I would have told her to wear something that sort of reminds people of a dinosaur for that. Like brassy T-Rex? Green. I might not tell her to make T-Rex arms, but something that reminds people of how maybe more pterodactyl than T-Rex.
I mean, she could have had like maybe more like sort of like iridescence on her leotard. Like if she had a smoother,
bronzy Yeah, like bronzy green, iridescent, not frou-frou, but that would like remind people of the scales of the dinosaur.
Yeah, that would have been
That,
cool.
yeah, that would have been. I want to give a shout out here to Oksana Bayul, because
Oh,
while all this drama is going on around her, Oksana Bayul just lets it all float off of her, and at umpteen years old, she rises above the drama and wins the gold. And if you want to hear about hard knocks, there was no money for funding the national teams in Ukraine. The Soviet Union's collapsed, so the state apparatus that funded all of the training all those years is gone. The Ukrainian figure skaters had to resurface the ice themselves if they wanted to keep practicing. Like, they
so
couldn't
Oksana Bayul was like driving the Zamboni between.
I mean, I want to say they didn't have a Zamboni. They had to
not.
like manually resurface the ice. And while we're at it, Slava Ukraini.
Indeed. I was explaining to people who weren't alive at the time that we didn't have the internet. So you had to watch all of this happen live. You didn't know whether or not, like, Nancy Kerrigan was going to pull it off in that final skate that Saturday night. And I was at my friend Sara's house, and I remember watching this and Nancy Kerrigan not getting the gold medal after all of this. And I remember just being like so shocked.
They didn't expect Oksana to win. It was like a last minute thing for them to find the Ukrainian national anthem to play.
Nancy was so bitter.
I've read that if you look at pictures of people on Olympic podiums, that usually the bronze winner looks much happier than the silver winner.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because the bronze winner, it's like a nice surprise. And there are cases where people you thought were going to come in first come in third, yes. But the bronze winner, it's a nice surprise, and the silver winner got this close.
Yeah, and I think probably like the culmination of everything, and then Nancy gets the silver.
But she still gets endorsements. She was still the guest host of what is considered the worst Saturday Night Live episode ever.
That has one of the funniest sketches on it, though. I don't know if you remember when she and Chris Farley were doing pairs skating, and
that's
David
on Farley,
Spade
though.
Yes, but David Spade was doing Scott Hamilton, and there's one line where like the music changes. First, the music starts and he's like, Yanni, a bold choice. And then the music switches to Technotronics Pump Up the Jam. And he's like, uh-oh, pump up the jam. And he's like, pump up the jam. They will do, Vern. She does not win. She is banned from skating.
Basically, she's sentenced to being nobody. Careers in figure skating are short, and I think that's one of the reasons I lost interest in it, is because the group that I saw as a kid had all retired. The people I'd seen coming up behind them had retired, and no one stays in it long enough to really attach to them. Even if hypothetically she'd been able to, which it wasn't going to happen, she'd been able to do 18 months in prison, even with how talented she is, I'm not sure statistically that she had another championship season in her, because she would have been in her late 20s by the time there was another Olympics.
The shame of being banned from the sport for the rest of her life, when that's the only thing she ever did, is pretty brutal. She was going to get shunned regardless, because that's what we did in that time. And she was a woman. There was no way back to skating for her, but, certainly like being banned from the only thing she knew how to do really sucks.
She would have been too old pretty soon for competition, but she can't coach or do anything connected to it. Nobody's stopping her from giving exhibitions. All Oppenheimer lost was a government gig that amounted to 6 billable hours a year one year.
It's a shame because there's a world in which she, say she went to prison for a year and a half, got out early, less than a year or whatever. And she could have come out and she could have been an incredible coach, who went to prison and did their time and came out better off, like Martha Stewart.
Yeah.
There is something about once you atone for whatever horrible crime you did in America, like if you show proper atonement and bowing and scraping and begging, the public usually will forgive you. And I think like Tonya never apologized in the way that people wanted to see her apologize.
I don't think she ever could have gotten it right. And I feel like the word that I keep using in this episode is tawdry, but she had like something in 98 where she went on when, and Nancy is in the same space with her. And there's some sorry agenda to it. I don't really care. They both look very uncomfortable in the clips, and it's just tawdry. And neither of them should have had to sit through that.
If you're apologizing to a person you did a crime to on television, I would say that's almost as bad as if you find yourself hooked up to a lie detector on national television for the benefit of entertainment. Like, you need to ask yourself some hard questions about how you got there.
They show that thing of her apologizing for having anything to do with Jeff. We see her hearing David Letterman use her as a punchline. We cut to Galooly and the fluff beard he has that is as bad as the mustache, where he acknowledges that he ruined her career.
We get to the end here and we see that she gets involved in professional boxing for women, which is just a huge bummer.
She also did that Dumb Crimes show, and I have to say, she has, with humility, done whatever anyone would pay her for.
Yeah, and she had a sex tape leak.
Yeah, they go to the lady boxing. People catch up with Tonya Harding every so often. What's amazing is when they write about she goes on the ice and she can still do all these things that no one her age should be able to do. And the questions I'd like to ask Tonya Harding, I wouldn't want to ask her anything about the incident because it's the least interesting thing about her. It's, again, I'm going to use that word, tawdry. It's been done to death, and nobody knows what to think anymore. But I want to know what her thoughts are on, has the technical quality of skating gotten worse since you don't have to do compulsory figures anymore? And what, like, that she had to learn this thing that wound up being redundant and that it made everything that was already expensive so much more expensive. What was her perception on the whole, like, Janet Lynn, Trixie Schuba thing that wound up with the reduction in the figures? And, like, if the wheel of opinion turned again and she could get reinstated, would she want to coach? What does she think she could bring to that? What approach would she take? What if she could have skated to music she actually liked? What would she pick? How would she choreograph it? What would she have worn if she didn't have to approximate someone else's perception of a lady? And, like, just as a layman, how the hell do you even tell the jumps apart when you're looking at them? And I know that there are many, many other excellent figure skaters out there who have never been accused of a felony and could answer those questions too, but I don't know that they'd all give the same answer.
I have to agree that, like, I don't feel like we know a ton about what she thinks about skating, and I would be interested.
I want her answers on all the nitty-gritty esoterica, because you know who probably knows a hell of a lot about figure skating and no one asks her? Tonya Harding. But I guess that's I, Tonya.
Yeah, that is I, Tonya.
I think this was my third or fourth time watching this movie.
I love to, like, when a movie hones in, and I think you feel this way too, but when a movie in on a very specific, very narrow era and just fucking nails it. And this movie does that. The way that they were able to capture the culture was well done in terms of, like, just the absurdity and the cruelty of this era of the 90s, and just, like, how we were like, this seems like news. We should cover the shit out of this. And as I have said many times, Paul Walter Hauser is a genius in this. And then when they are showing us the credits, just in case you were thinking that he was overplaying it, you see that you see the Sean Eckert footage and you're like, nope, that's real. This is exactly what he was like. This is exactly what Jeff Galooly was like. You know, these people, this is all very real to the situation. Oh, what a time to be alive. Let's talk a little bit about the awards. This was nominated for all of the awards, particularly for Alice and Janney, who won most of them, including as we mentioned, the Oscar, Critics' Choice, all like the state and city Critics Circle Awards, the Golden Globe, everything, and very well earned. And then also Margot Robbie was nominated for an awful lot of awards as well, including an Academy Award. And she's outstanding in this. She was doing other things that showed that she was pretty darn talented, but this really kind of showed how interesting she wanted to get in her career, and she hasn't backed down from that since. I like that she takes big swings. I like that she supports female artists. Really dig her and think that she is doing really interesting things, and I'm excited for her on that. This also like saw some awards nominations for screenplay and things like that. Like where it really shone in the awards front was for Margot Robbie and for Allison Janney. Indeed,
everyone is fantastic in this. There is not a single bad or disingenuous performance in here.
You know who we haven't really talked about, who is also wonderful in this, is Julianne Nicholson, who is one of those actors who she's always good and stuff, and she's really good at playing a role that is a little bit more still and is responsive to louder people, and I think that's the case in this. And she's really amazing on Mayor of Easttown. She is really amazing in August Osage County. Black Mass, we'll see her when we get to that with Daywalking Whitey Bulger. She's really wonderful and understated as Diane in this, and gives that character a lot of richness as well. So that is that. What is next? Choice dialogue.
So the things I had down, I realized it's not the lines themselves, it's how and when they're spoken and the juxtaposition, because it's more about, so there's Allison Janney when she's on the ice and she says, "That girl is your enemy. You're not here to make friends." And then, like the stuff that people say when they're breaking the fourth wall. So, my mom hits me, she loves me. And finally, I never did this.
This is a banger script. There's so many good lines, and it is, in a lot of cases, about the delivery. Allison Janney has a lot of great lines.
Spit in her milk.
Oh my God. What a terrible mother. And everything that Sean Eckerd says is hilarious.
Sarah, can you please give our listeners a quick refresher about how we score movies?
I would be happy to. We rate movies on a 1 to 10 scale across 10 areas that we find to be subjectively and or objectively important to most films, especially tailored to specific issues in biopics. If you want more details on how we score movies, please scroll down our webpage at biopicapodcaststory.podbean.com. You'll also find a record of our scores for past episodes there. And with that out of the way, let's score this thing.
All right, so I'll go first. And I love this movie a lot. So for outward appearances, makeup and hair, I gave it a 9. For acting and casting, I gave it a 10. Passage of time, 8. Costuming, 9.5. They just get everything so down pat. Normally, I'm very, very hard on things that are set within the past 60 years or so.
Yes.
But just like the level, like you can smell all of the cigarette smoke on Allison Janney's dingy looking coat. Quality of the script, I gave it a 9. Accuracy, 5. Storytelling, 9. Production value, 9. Production, direction, decision making, 10. Do we care? I gave it a 10. I was like riveted the whole way, and so that brought me to 8.85, but I used the buy, so my total comes to 9.85.
Excellent. So outward appearances, 9. Acting and casting, 10. If I could give it an 11, I would. Passage of time, 9. Costuming, 9. Quality of the script, 9. Accuracy, 6. I went pretty high on accuracy because it's accurate to the spirit of things. It's accurate to the way people remember these things, and it's accurate to their individual truths.
And that is fair, because there's the spirit of the thing. Everything you said about the spirit of the things is correct. We're never going to give anything a 10 for accuracy.
No. No. Storytelling, I give it a 10. You know I love this format. And it was a really unique way to present the story. On top of that, all of the wall breaking and everything. Production value 9, production direction decision making 10. Do we care? 9. So my total score came out to a 9.
So, Tonya, congratulations. Your score came to 9.425, which means you have earned a second opinion.
Second opinion is the element we stole from How Did This Get Made?
The prize for scoring above an 8 or below a 4 is that you get to hear us make fun of IMDb reviewers who disagreed with our assessment of the film.
Our first review is from Fearless 89749, written on January 30th, 2018. 1 out of 10 stars. Title: Don't take your 50-year-old mother or anyone else. I'm sorry, but I couldn't even watch this movie or pay attention to what was going on due to the excessive swearing. It's 2 these in there.
Okay.
Like, I understand movies have swearing in them and the rating was strong coarse language, but this was a joke. We walked out 20 minutes into the movie. Every single sentence either started with an F word or ended with an F word, or had a few C words thrown into it. Sure, the director is trying to portray how the main characters acted and talked in real life, but not to the point of ruining the movie.
I guess that Fearless 89749 doesn't fucking like foul language. This next review, 1 star out of 10, was written by Mary Donna 1131. I guess that's her birthday. On May 8th, 2018. And it's entitled, I'm so glad I didn't waste dollars on this movie. Borrowed this movie from the local library. I'm so glad I didn't spend hard-earned money on this garbage. Way too many F-bombs. Not entertaining at all. Stop supporting trash like this. Hollywood. Start taking lessons from Hugh Jackman.
What? What does he have to do with it?
Hugh Jackman have to do with it? Gosh, how can it be that so many people dislike cursing? It's very cathartic.
Indeed. Okay, next one. 1 out of 10. Written by Strictly Confidential. All one word. July 22nd, 2018.
I love the title of this one.
The title of this is TRASH exclamation point.
Trash!
Okay.
Take it away.
Oh, this one has a tone. Ah, yes. Welcome to the wonderfully glamorous and, of course, highly rewarding world of women's competitive professional figure skating. And looking at Tonya from my perspective, I'd say that it was the ultimate glorification of trash. From its trashy characters, to its trashy situations, to its trashy violence, to its trashy dialogue, to its trashy everything. It was all just trashy, 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 trash. And being such absolute trash that it was, and in its shameless trashiness, it actually stooped to the gutter-level mentality of encouraging the viewer to literally laugh out loud at what happened to Nancy Kerrigan, as though the whole incident was just a, quote, slapstick, unquote, comedy. Tisk, tisk. Such utter trash that tries to pass itself off as worthwhile entertainment.
Sarah, I know what's up with this review.
Yes.
So this review was written by the figure skating judge, who tells Tonya, we also score for presentation, is based on.
I mean, as our friends at We Hate Movies say, it's okay to like a thing, and it's okay to not like a thing. I want to give everyone the space to do that, but it's fascinating, like, how stupid the reasons people don't like things are.
All right, yeah. I'll read this last one.
Okay.
1 star out of 10, written by G Magic 2525 on January 31st of 2019. Overrated and not funny. I love Margot Robbie as an actress, but unfortunately this movie is boring and hard to take seriously. Allison Janney is a bright spot in this film, but there's not much more than that. If you are looking to laugh, then this movie is not for you. It seems like most of the film was fabricated, even though the movie is based on a true story.
Not to get all philosophical here, but like, what are we talking about when we say fabricated? The movie was fake because it's a movie. Like, you know, like it wasn't real. This person is wrong. I don't.
Yeah, they're wrong.
I don't know what else to say.
Well, it wasn't
like this story is absurd.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, Margot Robbie was like a baby when it happened, and she didn't believe it was real when she read the script, which is just flabbergasting to me because of how much space this consumed in the public mind when I was in middle school.
We were there, and I barely believe it's real.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's unbelievable that something like this happened, and yet it did.
So, other stuff you should watch instead. This movie is fantastic. I love it. Even though I do a show about biopics, which means I watch a biopic every week, I'll probably watch this movie again for the heck of it at some point. And I would say watch the videos of Tonya Harding actually skating. Watch videos of what the top women's figure skaters were doing at the time, and decide for yourself whose style you like best. And also it is kind of a hoot to look up those videos from every 4 years at the Olympics where they would have people come on and try to explain what the heck the figure skating part of figure skating is about and why it affects who medals.
I would echo your recommendations. Absolutely watch this movie. It's quite good. Also, because I've been talking about my stock in Paul Walter Hauser, I would say definitely watch the new Naked Gun movie. He is in that. He's really funny in it. So go visit his Instagram because he's a delightful individual and seems like a good egg. I would also recommend The Price of Gold, the 30 for 30 documentary about this is quite good and gets inside all of it. And still reading The Power Broker.
I was going to ask if you were still reading The Power Broker.
I am.
Okay. Also, Taffy Producer Ackner's article on Tonya Harding, which we mentioned up top, is excellent.
Yeah, I mean, read anything of hers. She's an amazing writer. And Fleischman is in Trouble is really, really something. I haven't read her other one yet. It's on my pile. I'll probably get to it after The Power Broker. I'm also going to find the SNL sketch, and we can post that if I can track it down.
If we're going to post Nancy with Chris Farley, then we should also post Chess for Girls and say, this is what the sportscasting for women's skating looked like at the time.
Or on the topic, I'll see if I can find that John Tesh article about his wedding night.
Oh my god, yeah, black.
Let's just dig up all the corpses of the 90s.
Sarah, can you please take us out?
I'd be happy to. So our podcast baby has matured into a toddler, and we have launched a Patreon, simply an effort to defray some of the costs associated with bringing our show to you. Platform hosting, recording, equipment, and research. And we have to occasionally order a book off the internet, and sometimes we have to pay for movie rentals. And sometimes we may want to see a movie in the theaters, or we may have to pay for transit to see each other if we want to record in the same place at the same time. We are offering shout outs and access to our awful first 3 episodes to anyone who chips in for us. And with that, we'd like to thank Brandon and Gates, who signed up already.
Thank you, Brandon and Gates.
Thank you, Brandon and Gates. If you liked the show, please leave us a 5-star rating and subscribe to us on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and tell a friend, or better yet, plural friends, and share us on social media. We hear it helps. You can follow us on Threads, Blue Sky, and Instagram, where we have visual aids from all of our episodes. Our Instagram handle is @BioPickAPodcastStory, so do check us out there, and we'll link to that in the show notes as well. Please also check out our webpage at biopickapodcaststory.podbean.com to see the official episode ratings for all of the movies that we've done so far. And if you would like to get in touch, you can email us at biopiclistenermailbag@gmail.com. Our theme music is by Ben Patch. The intro is his song Slater Cannonball, and the outro is Spring Breakers, and you can check him out on Spotify. And as a reminder, we will be speaking at Intelligent Speech Online, which is taking place on February 28th, 2026, and tickets are now available at intelligentspeechonline.com.
Enter biopic, that's BIOPIC, at the checkout for 10% off because we sent you. Tune in next week when we'll be talking about introducing Dorothy Dandridge, the first film in our Black History Month 2026 series, starring Halle Berry, the first Black woman to win the Academy Award for Best Actress, as Dorothy Dandridge, the first Black woman to be nominated for the Academy Award for Best Actress.
Love that synergy. And also we'll be welcoming back to the show Otto Preminger. And with that, I guess that's our night. Yeah.
Good night to the earnest and the cynical. If you're having trouble falling asleep, just imagine a camera above some black ice overhead, obsessively watching someone retrace a pattern on the ice with one foot that they drew with the other foot. It should help.
Indeed. That sounds very boring.
Good night, Sarah.
Good night, Rena.